What are your thoughts on fecal transplants? I think they do have risks. Shoving somebody else's poo up your rear end, there is the potential for getting other pathogens from the other person. They do say that they follow protocols to make sure that it never happens, but it has happened sometimes. I've been on the fence on this issue for a long time. And the reason for that is I do see a benefit in it. I know the rat studies where they can actually change the gut microbiome of one rat to the other and actually can be quite beneficial. And there has been a lot of positive things that have happened for some people that have got really poor microbiome sort of status. In particular, if somebody's lost, like they've lost their, their appendix. Now, your appendix is the old cecum, and that's where it held your gut microbiome. So even when you take antibiotics, if you're going to restore, it restores from that reservoir of bacteria. So people that don't have that would get the biggest benefit, but there is a risk. I have to be honest about that. There is a risk of other infections. That's all I can say. And this is not medical advice, guys. It's just basically my opinion on how I sort of feel about it. I'm not lukewarm about it, in a sense. Lukewarm. What a term to use on the subject matter, on a subject of shit. Yeah. Look, there are risks. Let me just put it like that. If people are contemplating using, because I've got severe derangements, I always will say to the people, do a broad spectrum bifidobacteria, a broad spectrum lactobacillus, do a kefir in there, do the B 3 months, the B complex, make sure that the pantothenic acid of that supplement is very low, is the lowest you can find. Because that is the problem with the cells in the back here that can actually be affected from too much excessive amount of stored. I have done a video on the Odyssey side about stored, I may have to do another one at some stage on pantothenic acid that does store to some extent. It wasn't considered, but there's an old research. And so that can be a problem if you've got excess causing, that's B5, excess B5 can actually cause insomnia type symptoms. So it can be a problem. And so, but taking for that sort of period to be able to provide the B vitamins for those beneficial bacteria that tend to utilize them and swap, and giving them vitamin D because they need as well some vitamin D. They can also do with vitamin D2 as well. They can use that. They can use, either one very effectively. So where for us, vitamin D2 from plants is very poorly absorbed and utilized, but bacteria can utilize it quite well. So those sort of things can actually help remodulate the gut microbiome, plus inflammasome that actually has a direct effect through AMP. And taurine is the one that regulates that. And that's in my digestive issues and the microbiome playlist. You'll find that. Yeah, I'd rather people try that. And if that didn't work, all that sort of stuff, then consider this as a sort of a last resort and be aware that there are risks. I think that's my final answer on that. I've been skirting around that because I'm still partially on the fence on the whole issue. But if people are desperate, they've tried everything. Yeah, but there are risks entailed. I'm not a fan or 100% convinced that it's the right way to go. it can be tricky. That's true. It can be tricky, even for a physician that's experienced, and it can be tricky with these sort of things. Ultimately, I think if you're on a species appropriate diet, ultimately, if you get your vitamin D status up and you try and re-regulate your body, it sometimes resolves all on its own. There can be certain circumstances where, people have had certain things done to them that then can actually affect them. They may have had some surgical intervention in the thyroid. When that happens, it's really hard for me to get, I usually say to people, fix everything else and then take a low dose of something, of one of these potential medicines you may need, because you can't get that extra amount from the physiology because of the alteration that's actually happened to your body. And I can't alter that. It's happened. There is no supplement to reverse it. So I'm always cognitive of that. I'm aware of, like people that come to me that have had, some surgical intervention in their gut. And I go, well, now you're malnourished and you're not absorbing things. And I usually say, well, your only option now is to use the expensive method, which is using a liposomal, which can be absorbed. So liposomal vitamins and trace minerals and stuff like that. And they are expensive to take for the rest of your life in order to make sure that you're absorbing sufficient micronutrients. But that's the only option you've got, because, I can't reverse what you've done surgically to yourself. So there's those sort of things that people need to be aware before making these life-changing decisions. And people make them all the time, and it just baffles me that they don't think about the long-term consequences of those steps. These things are not easily reversible once done.